It is Ghana's 68th Independence Day. That moment didn't just change Ghana, but inspired the freedom movements across the entire continent of Africa. Ghana was under British colonial rule for about 83 years. It was from 1874 to 1957, and even though the Europeans had been present in the country for centuries, it wasn't until 1874 that the British officially took over and made the country one of their colonies and called it the Gold Coast. That meant that they controlled the land, the resources, and the people, with little say from the locals. For decades, Ghanaians resisted, but things really started to heat up in the 1940s and 1950s. After studying abroad in the US and the UK, Nkrumah returned home determined to fight for independence. And in 1949, he formed the CPP, which is the Convention People's Party, with a bold message of self-governance now. And the people responded. They had mass protests, boycotts, and demonstrations that followed. The British, of course, weren't too happy about this. So what did they do? They arrested him. Nkrumah was jailed in 1950 for leading protests. And here's the incredible part. While he was in jail, he was still elected by the people in the 1951 election that Ghana had under the British Constitution. And Nkrumah's CPP won 34 out of 38 seats. The victory was so massive that the British had no choice but to release him from prison. In 1952, he was appointed the prime minister, making him the head of government, but not yet of an independent Ghana. The British governor still had power over key areas like foreign affairs and defense. Over the next 5 years, Nkrumah continued to push for full independence, and the CPP won 2 more elections, in 1954 and again in 1956, proving that Ghanaians were fully behind him. Finally, after years of negotiations and political pressure, Ghana finally became a fully independent nation on March 6, 1957, ending the years of British colonial rule. Then came that historic night on March 6, 1957, in front of thousands at the old polo grounds where Black people were once not allowed to go, and he stood there and declared Ghana's independence.
At long last, the battle has ended. And thus, Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. From now on, there is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that, after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. Now I want you all, those who have hats on, to take off your hats and let the band play our national anthem. And from now on, that national anthem is the national anthem of the Gogo, to be played on all occasions.
Can you imagine what that moment must have felt like after 83 years of British rule? Finally, victory. It sent a powerful message across the rest of Africa, and countries like Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa were watching closely and inspired to push harder for their own independence. Ghana had set the stage for the entire continent. After independence, Nkrumah became Ghana's first prime minister and later president. He focused on the infrastructure of education, uniting Africa, and building business, building manufacturing. He also played a major role in forming the Organization of African Unity, OAU, now known as the African Union. But as we know, politics can be complicated. And in 1966, while he was on a diplomatic trip to China, he was overthrown in a coup. Released classified documents decades later proved that the United States CIA was involved in being overthrown. It was a turning point in Ghana's history, but his legacy of African unity and self-determination still stands strong today.